She didn't raise her voice. She didn't slam the door. She didn't tell you she was leaving. Instead, she slowly stopped explaining herself. The paragraphs became one-word replies. The stories became silence. The arguments became whatever. Most people think they know what this means. They assume she's playing games. She's being passive-aggressive. She's trying to punish someone. Or maybe she just doesn't care anymore. But what if all those explanations are wrong? Psychologists have spent decades studying why people emotionally withdraw. What they've discovered is far more complicated than simply giving someone the silent treatment. Because not all silence is manipulation. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's exhaustion. And sometimes it's what happens when the brain quietly decides that speaking no longer feels safe. Today we're exploring why some women slowly become quieter after they've been hurt. Not through internet myths or relationship cliches, but through psychology, neuroscience, and the hidden patterns that shape human behavior. Because understanding silence might completely change the way you understand the people you love. Chapter 1. Silence isn't what you think it is. If someone suddenly stops talking during an argument, our brains immediately begin telling the story. She's ignoring me. She's punishing me. She's emotionally immature. It's an understandable assumption. Silence feels intentional. And when we don't know why someone has changed, our minds rush to fill in the missing pieces. Behavior tells us what someone is doing. It doesn't always tell us why. And that distinction may be one of the most misunderstood ideas in modern psychology. Imagine seeing these two people. They look exactly the same. Neither is speaking, neither is engaging. But one is trying to create emotional distance, while the other is desperately trying to protect themselves from becoming even more emotionally overwhelmed. The behavior is identical. The psychology couldn't be more different. So the question isn't why do women become quiet? The better question is, what makes silence feel safer than speaking? Silence can become efficient. This is where many people misunderstand emotional withdrawal. They assume silence means giving up. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes the brain is trying to protect emotional energy. Researchers studying emotional regulation have found that when people become emotionally overwhelmed, withdrawing from conflict can function as a coping strategy, not because the conflict has been solved, but because continuing to engage feels too psychologically expensive. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack every day. Eventually, your body looks for ways to conserve energy. Your mind does something remarkably similar. And that's an important distinction, because efficiency isn't always healing. Sometimes, it's simply survival. But if prediction is only half the story, what teaches the brain that emotional honesty isn't safe in the first place? And the answer isn't simply conflict. It's something much quieter. Something psychologists call emotional invalidation. And unlike shouting, it often leaves no visible scars, only invisible expectations. Movies often teach us that relationships fall apart because of one dramatic event, one betrayal, one argument, one unforgettable night. Real life is rarely that simple. For many women, the shift towards silence happens so gradually that they don't even notice it's happening. At first, they explain, "That really hurt my feelings." Then, they explain again, "I don't think you understood what I meant." Then, they explain differently, trying softer words, better timing, more patience, less emotion, only to get back things like, "You're overreacting. You're too emotional. It's not a big deal." Eventually, something strange begins to happen. They stop editing their sentences because they stop believing the sentences will matter. But invalidation can also be much quieter. Changing the subject, making a joke, defending intentions before acknowledging feelings, explaining why someone shouldn't feel hurt instead of becoming curious about why they do. None of these moments seem catastrophic, and that's exactly why they're so powerful. Eventually, something changes. She doesn't decide, I'm going to stop talking. She simply begins asking herself one question less often. Maybe this time they'll understand. And when hope quietly leaves the conversation, words often leave with it. But here's where psychology becomes even more fascinating. Not every woman responds this way. Some become louder. Some become anxious. Some become desperate to reconnect. Others disappear emotionally altogether. Why? Because silence isn't determined by personality alone. It's influenced by something that often begins in childhood, long before the relationship itself ever existed. Imagine you're learning a language. No one hands you a dictionary. No one explains the grammar. You simply absorb patterns day after day, year after year. Relationships work in a surprisingly similar way. Long before we understand words like trust, conflict, or intimacy, our brains are already collecting information. Psychologists call these early expectations attachment patterns. A child who repeatedly experiences comfort learns something simple. When I reach for someone, there's a good chance they'll meet me. But another child may learn something entirely different. When I express difficult emotions, people become uncomfortable. So it's safer if I deal with this on my own. These lessons are rarely taught with words. They're taught through hundreds of repetitions of ordinary moments. This is why emotional withdrawal often surprises people. From the outside, it appears sudden. From the inside, it has usually been developing for a very long time. That moment simply revealed what had been quietly growing beneath the surface. But there's one final piece of this puzzle that most people never consider. If silence begins as protection, why does it often continue even after the danger is past? To answer that, we need to look at the way the brain and the nervous system adapt to repeated emotional experiences. Because sometimes, the hardest habit to unlearn is the one that once kept you safe. Here's one of the most uncomfortable questions psychology asks. What if the person you think you are is actually someone your nervous system learned to become? Think about that for a moment. How many parts of your personality are truly you? And how many are simply strategies that worked often enough to survive difficult situations? Maybe you've always described yourself as quiet, independent, low maintenance, easygoing, someone who never asks for much. But psychology suggests something fascinating. Sometimes what feels like personality began as protection. The human brain is so efficient that when a certain strategy reduces emotional pain, it gets repeated again and again. Eventually, you stop consciously choosing it. It simply becomes the way you respond. Think about learning to drive. At first, every movement requires attention. Checking mirrors, changing gears, watching the road. Years later, your body performs many of those actions automatically. Emotional habits work in much the same way. The nervous system practices responses until they become familiar. Not necessarily because they're the healthiest, but because they're predictable. And to the brain, predictability feels safer than uncertainty. This is something many people find deeply confusing. They enter a healthier relationship, a safer friendship, a workplace where they're genuinely respected, yet they still struggle to express themselves. They wonder, why am I still like this? The answer isn't necessarily that they don't trust the people around them. Sometimes, their nervous system simply hasn't updated its prediction yet. Remember, your brain isn't reacting only to today's conversation, but comparing it to hundreds of yesterdays. And changing those predictions takes something the brain values more than promises. Evidence. Multiple reassuring conversations, countable apologies, consistently good days. Repeated experiences that slowly challenge an old expectation. There is, however, one problem. Silence can accidentally reinforce itself. Imagine you've learned that speaking rarely changes anything. So, you stop expressing your feelings. Because you stop expressing them, the people around you often assume everything is fine. Nothing changes. Your brain notices. See? Speaking wouldn't have made a difference anyway. The prediction becomes stronger. Not because it was objectively true, but because your own protective strategy prevented new evidence from appearing. This is a self-reinforcing cycle. The belief shapes the behavior. The behavior shapes the outcome. The outcome strengthens the belief. Without realizing it, the nervous system becomes trapped inside a prediction it no longer questions. But if silence was never the real problem, what is? What does genuine emotional healing actually look like? And how do you begin speaking again without forcing yourself to become someone you're not? The opposite of silence isn't speaking. Most people assume healing means becoming more expressive, speaking more, standing up for yourself more often. But psychology suggests something much deeper. The opposite of silence isn't speaking, it is safety. Because when people genuinely feel emotionally safe, communication rarely has to be forced. It begins to happen naturally. Not because someone has learned the perfect communication technique, but because their nervous system no longer expects vulnerability to end in pain. That is a very different kind of healing. One of the most powerful experiences a human being can have is speaking honestly and discovering that nothing bad happens. No ridicule, dismissal, or punishment. Hence, no emotional withdrawal. Just curiosity in the presence of someone willing to stay. Moments like these may seem ordinary, but to a nervous system that has spent years expecting misunderstanding, they are extraordinary. Because every safe conversation becomes new evidence that challenges an old prediction and slowly teaches the brain, maybe this relationship is different. Maybe I don't have to protect myself in the same way anymore. This is how emotional trust is rebuilt. Not through one life-changing conversation, but through dozens of ordinary conversations that end differently than expected. The greatest misunderstanding about emotional silence is believing that it means someone has nothing left to say. Often, it means they've spent so long feeling unheard that their nervous system stopped believing words would make a difference. Understanding that doesn't solve every relationship. It doesn't excuse unhealthy behavior. And it doesn't remove the responsibility we all share to communicate honestly. But it does offer something increasingly rare. Compassion without losing accountability, understanding without oversimplifying. Because psychology isn't about placing people into categories. It's about helping us see the invisible forces shaping behavior. And sometimes, the most meaningful question we can ask isn't, why did she become so quiet? It's, what would have made her feel safe enough to keep speaking? Perhaps the answer to that question is where healing truly begins. If this video gave you a new way of understanding yourself or someone you care about, consider subscribing to FemoScience. Every week, we explore the psychology, neuroscience, and hidden behavioral patterns shaping the lives of modern women through research-backed, video-style storytelling. Because understanding ourselves shouldn't begin with judgment. It should begin with curiosity.